Hey everyone, welcome to Smart College Visits Campus Chat Live. Very excited to be here tonight. We will be speaking with Chad Dorman from the Leonard Andrew Consulting firm, and we'll be talking about student athletes and college admissions. If you don't have an athlete in your home and you haven't thought much about that, then you're probably like, wonder what they've been doing this spring while they've been homeschooled. How do you make an athlete, take them out of the gym and out of the teams and out of the training? How does all that work when you're going through the stay-at-home time? So anyway, there's that and all the other normal questions that parents and students might have that we're going to address. So Chad, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Excited to have you. And Kylie, happens to be the mom of a student athlete. So we're really excited that she's got a kind of a personal experience with this. So it'll be fun to bring all this together.
Yeah. So hi everyone. How you doing? Happy Thursday. As Kelly mentioned, I'm not only part of Smart College Visit and do college admissions work, but I am the mom to James, and I did actually ask permission to use his name and story as part of this. So I'm sure he'll probably ask to watch it later. But James is just finished freshman year in high school, and he's a lacrosse player. He's been a lacrosse player for a while. He was soccer for a long time, and then they put him in goal. He wasn't a fan of that, and so he moved over to lacrosse after everybody told him, "Hey, you should try lacrosse. You're built for lacrosse." And so he tried lacrosse, immediately took to it, and made varsity as a freshman, which we were all very excited about. He's played on travel teams. He's played on rec teams. Was looking forward to a great first year freshman varsity, suited up for one game. And then, of course, the coronavirus pandemic happened. And of course, I missed that one game. I do have to say, I was away for that game, and I had told him, I'm not going to miss any other games. I'm going to miss your first game. I'm so sorry. I'm going to miss your first game. I will not miss any others. What did I do? Miss the only one he suited up for. So yeah, he's going to be facing college admissions. He's already talking about clip reels and showcases and all of these things. And while he is a freshman, he's not a junior who missed out on a big spring sport for him. He's got a bunch of questions about, how is this going to impact his year? How is it, or impact his career? And Chad, this is what you do. This is your consulting, your gig. So what you had said, you have three things that all student athletes right now can do in the downtime.
Yeah. It's three things that really students and student athletes should be doing all the time regardless, but the three of them are coming under a bit of a microscope in this time in our lives with the pandemic. Everything's very fluid, right? Test scores, recruiting, admissions, things we may talk about today by a week or two from now may have kind of shifted a little bit. And so while we all may not know, I said earlier before we got on, you may ask a coach, hey, what do I do about X, Y, or Z? He or she may not know either. And so being able to do the three things that we or as student athletes can control will help them to kind of push a lot of value out to coaches and teams and controlling their own destiny a little bit, but it'll just make sure that as the whole student, as a student athlete, with academics, with their experiences, and then with their athletics, moves that whole thing forward in, again, showing themselves the best way possible to coaches. So the three things: being able to communicate at a very, very high level, what we call personal marketing or personal branding, college prep or even athletic recruiting at its core is very much like a marketing or branding process. Mm-hmm. So walking through those steps, shutting off my phone,
and then communication, right? That's
real. This is that's a student as well from Louisiana. Let's mute that. Sorry. And then focusing on the whole self. So not just sports, and obviously, yes, there are a lot of young men and young ladies who are very sports focused, sports driven. But again, you're not just going to a school to play sports. There's a lot of other things that go with it. And so this is a time to optimize.
Watch sports. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. So communication. Let's start with that one.
Communication. Again, a lot of folks are just wondering what's going on. You're going to be wondering what's going on. We'll work with students and student athletes. Plenty of questions will come out to us. What we're trying to get our student athletes to do is to communicate with the coaches, communicate with the schools, and start to ask some of those questions for themselves. We'll prompt them. We'll give them templates. We'll make sure that they're asking not just the right things, but the things that are going to provide them the most value, but to communicate as much as possible. In essence, if January of 2020, you thought you were communicating at a very high level, here in June 2020, you almost have to double and triple that.
Okay.
So using lacrosse as an example, using your son as an example, emailing to the coaches. So head coach, they may have an assistant coach. They may be a coach who is recruiting just your specific geographic location. Could be a coach, maybe not lacrosse as much, but football, baseball. Maybe there's a coach that's only recruiting for a specific position. Mm-hmm. To reach out to that man or woman, and it's a checkpoint. It's, hey, I'm still very interested. Hey, what do camps, combines, ID camps, showcases, what do those look like for the summer? Mm-hmm. And then also too, it's a little bit of character driven. I'm taking maybe these summer courses, or while SATs and ACTs are up in the air for many, it's, hey, I'm focused on doing this test prep, right? So it's having that just constant contact with the coaches. Not that you're going to be forgotten about, but it's a demonstrated interest to just always, always, always positively enforce and reinforce the determination and the desire. And it keeps that open line of communication. Students will ask, okay, well, in a given summer, in a summer of the pandemic, how many times do I reach out to coaches? 2 or 3 times is more than fine. We remind student athletes all the time, do not be discouraged if you don't hear from a coach. There's plenty going on right now. They're trying to figure out, their own lives. They're trying to figure out their own health. They're trying to figure out what the school may look like for an incoming freshman. They're trying to see, is campus going to open, stay closed, who knows what. Yeah. So to be very, very patient. They do read all of the emails. So it's not falling on deaf ears. The other thing too with emailing, with communication, that student athletes, it's not that they forget, but they do need constant reminders, is on the one hand, sure, you're going to go to school, you're going to study, hopefully something you're passionate about, in a subject matter that you have an interest in, that you may want to do after college, whether or not professional sports is there for you, that we try to work with them to connect with their admissions officers. Mm-hmm. So not just with the admissions office generically as a whole, the whole department, but to, if they're in Virginia or if they're in Connecticut, or maybe there's a broken out county that they can be communicating with, to reach out to those admissions representatives as a student athlete, to supplement some of the conversations and communications that they've already had, to, again, ask some questions, build some value, and look to get an understanding. What do tours look like? What do information sessions look like? What is it, maybe very generally speaking, what is it that I can do as a student, not even as a student athlete part, but what can I do as a student to help better my standing in the eyes of the school?
Yeah, we talk about demonstrated interest a lot for regular admissions. When we're talking about college visits, you have to let that admissions office know in some way that you are on campus. Like doing the spy version does not help you at all if you're actually interested in that school. Like you need those touch points. There's a space in that computer where they're going to check off that you have been in contact. And I'm sure there's a space for student athlete has been in contact.
Absolutely. And so looking at both the academics and the admissions, the athletic department and the admissions team, I always explain to my students that your application doesn't go in as a student athlete or as a student. It does not go in on the day you click send on the Common App. and off it goes. It actually starts when you have those early discussions, when you have those early emails. Maybe it's some social media, which is a whole separate topic, but maybe you reached out and did a direct message with a tweet or an Instagram post or whatever the case may be. Essentially, everything and anything that you're doing in communication with a school is just filling out your file. And you want to make sure during the whole process that you're constant and consistent, and then also filling it with the right stuff, which again could be a whole separate topic.
Do you think that student athletes need to be more savvy about what they communicate through social media than a regular a non-athlete applicant?
I would say they both have to be very conscious and very understanding of what they're putting out there, because admissions teams and athletic departments, coaches, programs, they'll both be looking at it. They'll be looking at it in a different lens, certainly. But we want both of the students and student athletes to just be cognizant to use social media as a tool. I want to say a tool for good, but it's even more than that. It's like, if your grandmother was to read it, would she be okay with what she's seeing? Mm-hmm. If a coach or a friend or a family member or someone was to see it, would they get value out of it? Social media, and for the students these days, not as much Facebook as much, but Twitter and TikTok and Instagram, that really becomes a living resume. Can't stress that enough. It's
the personal marketing, which
it really, really is. It does come back to that, and it lives out there forever.
It does.
And there's a number of stories of coaches and teams who have had recruits and have since dropped recruits because of some silly things, for lack of better terms, that they may have posted or said, and it's just it's tough that way, but it's completely understandable. So bringing in personal marketing, that ended up being a really, really great segue.
Good job.
Is again to use it for good. If you're pumped about a test, if you are, and we'll talk a little bit about this in a second, but if you have highlights of your games, your skills, your working out at the track or at the field, all of those things should be making it to ultimately what is your online living resume, right? Your personal marketing, your personal branding. When knowing now, I should say that with the pandemic, putting a halt, either postponing or cutting altogether different camps and combines and showcases, student athletes and their families will say, okay, well, other than the video clips we already had, what are some of the things that we can use? How can we market ourselves in that light? And we were talking again a little bit before this, filming training in the gyms, 6 feet of distance. If you're doing footwork, anything core work, that stuff can all be packaged up and either to Twitter, social media, or, as I mentioned earlier, the emails to just say, hey, coach, this is what I've been working on. I'm incredibly proud of where I'm at, right? Mm-hmm. I increased my max bench, or I got this much faster, or whatever the case may be. Just that authentic passion, too, of how well you're doing and the steps you're taking as a student athlete to better yourself takes it to a coach who says, you know what, I didn't get to see this young man or young lady perform in a camp or in a combine or in a showcase, but wow, this tells me a lot about their character, and it allows them to get to know you a little bit more, maybe than they even knew a month ago.
So we should be making TikToks of the speed gun that we've got.
You could. Now, I don't know. I'll say on TikTok, I know there are coaches on there. I don't know which coaches will see that on TikTok.
Instagram. We can save it. It's fine. But you're better than that radar gun, and it's a lot of fun, I have to say.
And it's one thing too to make those things and then be kind of sit back on your heels and not use them again, to use that phrase, use them for good. Yeah. It's much different to have the speed gun, or again, the core work, the footwork, any off-season training drills that can be done in really any sport. It's another thing to be proactive and aggressive, professionally, maturely aggressive, where, hey, I just had this. Here, coach, please take a look at this. Yeah. Another video too that links up with personal marketing, and again, it cannot be stressed enough that the athletic teams and the programs are only half the picture. The other half, right, is the academics and the admissions side of things. Not that you're going to be sending video to the admissions teams, but making sure that if there are, especially now, early June 2020, there are online, right? If there's online tours, if there's VR versions of tours, and then to have those worlds kind of meet, we're working with student athletes as well to come up with videos that are just kind of taking their phone, putting it on themselves, and they're introducing themselves. Hi, coach. My name is, I play this. Maybe they've had some connection on an email with a coach before. Maybe they haven't. But then also what we're encouraging student athletes to do in that video snippet, doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be a made for movie, doesn't have to be for the silver screen or anything like that.
Right.
But it allows them to go, okay, what else what makes me really tick? What am I passionate about? And so to, yes, talk sports, that's maybe why that video is being made in the first place. But then to talk about when I'm at your school or at your campus, I'd really like to study this, or I'm interested in this, or there's this program there in town or in the city that I'd like to be part of. Maybe there's a professional sports team and the young man or the young lady has some sort of sports marketing thought process. Doesn't have to be set in stone, especially if they're a freshman, just playing lacrosse. But I'm sure he, just like a lot of student athletes, may have an idea of what they'd like to study. You know, that all kind of that the looking ahead, demonstrating interest in another way, not just say, hey, I'm interested in your school because of what the here and now looks like, but also what my future is going to look like. That for coaches and for admissions officers goes a really, really long way.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And that moves you on to your third point, which is
the whole self. And you know, communication, personal marketing, personal branding, they're all really pointing to the whole self, right? And so all I stress and all we stress to our student athletes is at a time when, and I'll say this too, the NCAA is in what they call a dead period right now, meaning a coach can't meet you in person, a coach can't talk to your family members, they can't visit you at a camp or a combine, not that those are really happening anyway. They can email, they can talk to you on the phone, they can text, all that good stuff. But outside of the sports, again, and it takes a lot of reminders with student athletes that there's more to this, okay? And it's focusing on your grades, focusing on tests, focusing on who you are as a person, and not just doing maybe community service or not just taking an online course because somebody told you had to, or you think it looks good on a resume, but to actually do it because it really genuinely is something you want to learn about or you're passionate about. So to talk grades for a second, you know, over the summer, students aren't going to affect their GPA or their class rank, but what can they do? And to use the number 3 again, I know it must be my favorite number or something. They can focus on something they may be weakest in. Maybe they have some work to do in math, science, English, social studies. Could be, again, to use the word passionate. Maybe it's a course they're passionate about. Graphic design, coding, things like that. Could be something that they think they want to study in college. Maybe something you want to do beyond for work. So maybe there's a course on entrepreneurship or owning a business, right? Something like that. SATs and ACTs, to be very cognizant of, you know, the changes that are happening. As I kind of half joked earlier, this is all very fluid and it's changing by the day, but just be aware of what the ACTs are looking like, what the SATs are looking like, knowing that in some cases the test may go away completely. In other cases, it may be test optional, which, depending on the student, oftentimes with test optional, we'll have them take the test to see how they do, and then maybe we use that in their resumes or in their applications. Especially if it's really, really good, it's just another thing, as I said, that kind of pads that file on this is who I am moving forward. And then resume builders, again, community service and jobs, kind of a fickle time because no one's really sure where we're at with the pandemic. And then another thing that's optional, I almost forgot about it from earlier, but another thing that's deemed optional, and in the past was not really a requirement or necessity, is doing the interviews. Mm-hmm. And again, this wouldn't just be interviews with coaches or recruiters, but interviews with the admissions team or interviews with an alum of the school. We're finding that, again, for student athletes and for students, that more and more schools are apt to have them do an interview because it just gives them one other way to showcase who they are, who they're all about. Again, that key term of demonstrated interest. And, if they're prepped, they do mock interviews and they're practicing. And again, they're really passionate about who they are and what they want to showcase. They'll do well, even though they may say, I sound like I'm crazy right now. If they're really, really prepared, if they're really, really passionate about it, and, they've done their homework, they will do well because the interview will actually be less like an interview and more like a conversation.
Right.
Which, again, will do them super, super well, especially, again, in a summer that's been so vastly affected by the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah. And the whole self thing, that's James, my son, has been, we got him a GoPro. And so, he's been playing with that, and he just got a mountain bike, and that's what he's been making videos and thinking about doing filmmaking and stuff like that. And I was like, we're going to put those kinds of things in your clip reel too, because
those are absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Included in the clip reel, included at the end of the Common App.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah. Yeah. He's having a lot of fun with it. So, and it's a different way, as I've told him, to be a well-rounded athlete is that he can use his body in different ways. Mm-hmm. And so, and his brain too, he's
absolutely
most of the time. So as a 13-year-old,
that's coming from a mom too.
Coming from a mom. Yeah. So,
but is the clip reel, is there a standard for it in terms of length? Is there more than one clip reel with an application?
You could have, in terms of an application, the clip reels themselves will end up just being between student athlete and coach, even before you get to the application component. I will say that depending on the sport, depending on the coach, you're going to get some different variations in that. Shorter reels are better, a couple minutes. In time, there may be, and again, depending on the sport, a coach or, again, an assistant or a recruiter of a particular position or a particular area may want to see a full video, right? So it's not just those all-star highlights broken out. Maybe they want to see the ebb and flow of the game, how a student athlete acts and reacts, how he or she demonstrates the skill across the full game and not just some of those singled out components. And in a time like this too, where there's going to be a lot of emails, a lot of video going ahead, whether it's a huddle highlight, whether it's kind of a homemade one, which again, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Coaches are really going to look at the first couple moments, and there's some harsher words out there that they make a snap judgment based on what they see right away, but they are going to move rather quickly through them. And so you want to have a lot of your really, really great skill set showings up front, so that you leave no question about, who you are. And it's just like anything else, right? It's just like if there's a movie coming out, although in today's world, it may be streaming on Netflix, Hulu, or Xfinity, or whatever you may have. But if there's a movie coming out, you see the trailer for it, which gets you excited to want to go to the movie, to want to see more. Yeah. And that's how we deploy that mindset and that thought process to our student athletes. So it's not the whole kit and caboodle up front, but it's just some of your best work, right, in your masterpiece.
It's a hook. It's
absolutely
getting the hook. So
absolutely.
Kelly, you had a question about scholarships, because we're getting about 25 minutes in, and so
I feel like we could talk for hours.
Yeah, we could.
We could do like 2 hours just on those highlights alone. Absolutely.
So, at Smart College Visit, we publish scholarship resources,
Mm-hmm.
for the teens.
Yep.
But does an athlete have a different path related to searching for scholarships, or how does that work?
You know, a lot of the scholarships for athletes will come from working hard, communicating, a lot of the same three things we just talked about. One of the first steps to that, even before you get to the conversation of scholarships, is to make sure they're eligible for those scholarships, right? And so one of the things, if they're going to go through the NCAA, scholarships there are predominantly Division I, not predominantly, they are Division I, Division II for athletic scholarships.
Right.
Make sure that they file with the NCAA Eligibility Center. And so James should have already filed with that. And if he hasn't yet, he can do so tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what that'll do is that'll track, you know, the academic requirements. It will allow coaches to know that he or she is out there and willing to be recruited, right? And then the scholarships from a student athlete's perspective, again, it's really working hard, building those relationships, asking questions, but it's out of their hands at the outset. That's why working hard and asking questions and communicating and really knowing what you're going into as a student athlete is hugely beneficial, both for the student and for the parents, to make sure everybody's on the same page. Again, Division I, Division II, giving out the scholarships. Division III is more academically based, merit based, things like that. And then even just the different types of offers. There's, and we really could talk about this for forever, but you know, there's full scholarship offers, which are your sports like men's and women's basketball, football, gymnastics, tennis, volleyball, lacrosse.
Yeah.
But then you have partial scholarship offers, you have preferred walk-on offers. And another reason why that communication is so big and just valuable. Again, I think communication is key across the board, no matter what, however long ago, however long into the future. But just to know, and we've worked with a lot of students on knowing what the value looks like, knowing for how long it is. It may be a partial scholarship for their freshman year. Mm-hmm. And then when they take a look, they reallocate, they discuss, they ask, again, those very important questions. Maybe in their sophomore year, it changes and it adds X amount of dollars. Those are the types of things that kind of ebb and flow, again, per sport, per division, per school, based on the finances available. But starting with, again, working as hard as you can, and then communicating at the very, very best of your ability and asking questions too.
Yeah. And a lot of that with the NCAA eligibility portal and all of that with the coronavirus, we just don't know yet what everything's going to be, how things will roll over depending on if there is a season. I mean, we don't know about football coming up. We don't know, what's going to happen in the fall. And so all of that, I think, is we have to wait and see. And I mean, again, no one really knows, but I think the overarching understanding is that there's going to be a bit of a domino effect. Yeah.
Again, it depends on the sport, depends on the school, size of the school, all of that. But there's multi-level scholarship finance kind of impacts here, because you have the seniors in college who may be granted an opportunity to come back. Mm-hmm. That's part one of the impacts. You have the students who are going to be incoming freshmen. Again, whether it's full, partial, red shirt, whatever the case may be, that's going to be altered. And so you may have a bit of this domino effect, for lack of better terms, that really cascades a few years out.
Yeah. Honestly, I was kind of thinking, we have red-shirted athletes in college, but is there going to be a corona shirted? Like I wasn't able to play, and so I have another year of eligibility. I would be surprised if something like that happens. They are very heavily leaning towards that. Well, and the NCAA, again, probably a conversation for another day and another segment. A whole other Facebook Live, and we're at about a half an hour. But I just want to say, if any of our viewers, if you're interested in speaking with Chad more about what he does, this is the website for his agency. If you have an athlete that you would like to get some more information or help with, or specifics, I know we've been talking a big general. We threw in some lacrosse stuff here because of my kid, but every kid, just like every admission story, every student has their own story. Every student athlete has their own story too, and so if you're interested in speaking with Chad specifically about your student athlete, he can be reached there, and Kelly and I can always be reached here. So, Kelly, do you have anything else to say? I'm going to put our little, if you want to sign up for our newsletter, you can find us there.
Yeah. So. We'll have more information from our conversation with Chad in our newsletter and on smartcollegevisit.com.
Yeah.
Chad, it is so great to see you again, and I appreciate you being on our Campus Chat Live. Love all this information.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. A lot of it's just validating too that, James has taught himself how to run. That's been his big thing. Go do that. Take the GoPro. So go do that. So thank you so much for your time this evening. And all good.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Take care.